Hey, Taylor Elwood here, and welcome to the Sovereign Submission podcast for men. Today I have as a guest Michael Reed from Adaptive Men, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't see talked about a lot, which is the masculine physiological, biological rhythm and how that rhythm gets disrupted by addiction.
hmm
So, Michael, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you work with men.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on. My name's Mike. I'm a men's coach. My angle is more trying to work with men who are more scientifically driven, a little bit less spiritual, a little bit more science driven, data research, things like that. I try to tie in everything as to help it make sense for dudes as to why we're doing the work we're doing. It could be any kind of work between relationship work, finding a sense of purpose, finding a sense, working on addictions, emotional intelligence. But rather than sitting here and telling you like, oh, you need to feel your inner child, we're like, okay, let's talk about the psychology or like the subconscious, what's going on neurologically. What does this really mean evolutionarily? All this fun stuff. It resonates more with guys who kind of fall into that category and helping them kind of clear up the crap in their life that's holding them back from that angle. Yeah, that's pretty much my gig.
So, one of the things I looked at your website, Adaptive Men, and
hmm
one of the things that I saw there is that you talk about, the biology of the
hmm
masculine and kind of the physiology. And I thought that was really interesting because I don't see a lot of other coaches out there talking about it. So talk to me a little bit about that. What got you into the biology and what is the biology of a man? I think most men have this idea that, the biology is kind of like men have like don't really have a cycle. And I think that what I've discovered is we do have a cycle. It's not as exaggerated or it's not as I'm not going to say exaggerated, but it's not as apparent as the cycle that women go through.
Well, the cycle for men you can see is more like daily versus women more monthly.
Yeah.
And it's in a lot of, interestingly enough, a lot of like cultures around, like, if you've ever looked at study things like Taoism or any kind of like the like yin yang symbol, even in like in Chinese traditional medicine, yang is more associated with masculine, yin is more associated with feminine. Yang is more like the sun and heat and fire and like getting stuff done and moving forward and completing things, but also like, destruction and chaos and all that stuff. And yin is more like calm, quiet, soothing. It's associated with the moon. Interestingly enough, it's associated with the men associated with the sun, and you get like men first thing in the morning, most healthy men wake up and they got like raging hormones going through. A lot of guys wake up in the morning wood, things like that. By the end of the day, you kind of crash a little bit. The next morning, the whole cycle just repeats itself. Women tend to oscillate over the course of like a month. There's a bit of like, that hormonal biology going on in cyclicality. Um, as far as biological, though, there's a ton of debate around there on online around people saying like, what is a man biologically, what is a woman biologically, and all this stuff. There's a lot of different interpretations you can get into it. Um, what was the crux of the question? Like, what that you want to get to? So I don't go off track here.
Well, I just kind of wanted to explore like the masculine cycle, what that it
Mm.
actually is, like how that shows up, and then how that ties into the biological rhythms of a man and how those can get disrupted by addiction. We can get into some of that. But like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll share what I've observed. What I've
Go
come
for
to
it.
recognize is that I definitely have a daily rhythm of
hmm
sorts. But I've also noticed that as I'm getting older, I'm 49 at the time of this, I've definitely noticed that there is a little bit of a change in that cycle and that rhythm. Like I end up meditating midday where I probably didn't need to necessarily as much before, and so I think it's kind of an interesting thing to explore that, but also to just really be able to chart that my energy does stay pretty solid and present, and yet I can see little fluctuations and changes just because I'm paying attention carefully to like what I'm eating, what I'm doing,
hmm
exercise, all that other stuff that I think is so important that we often take for granted until we start to see we need to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something in there that you said about like exercise and eating and diet and things like that. I think in a perfect world, quote unquote perfect world, it's like every man would be eating the best quality food he can get. He'd be getting to sleep exactly on time when he needs to. He'd be waking up on time. He'd be physically active and like no interruptions that happen there. And what you would probably notice for healthy men in that regard is like they'd be waking up feeling refreshed, usually pretty fucking horny in the morning. But it's a lot of that is just like that morning burst of energy that your system's like ready to go. and you just like energy that you want to pour into the day or whatever you want to accomplish that day because you've eaten well, your body's recovering properly, you're physically exhausted in the right way when you go to sleep, which means you're recovering and you're stronger the next day. A lot of that is really, I think, what nature kind of designed for us is like you are meant to be an energetic, productive machine in some capacity. You're meant to try to be more productive than what nature is going to have like consume from you just through time and entropy and just like the nature natural order. Like we're kind of designed as a species to try to produce more and harvest more resources than we're going to burn because there's a lot of cyclicality even through nature. It's like certain parts of the world, half the year winter destroys your ability to be as productive outside as you could be inside. If you were a caveman back in the day, you had to have that energy during the good seasons to get as much as you could to prepare you for the long cold season when you couldn't get as many resources. You had to just survive. I think a lot of that energy is being sabotaged in a lot of way for a lot of men just because we have such a ridiculous amount of distractions that prevents us from like simplest example is like people having a hard time going to sleep nowadays. Why? Because there's so many distractions in your house. Could be a TV in your bedroom, could be your phone, could be social media, doom scrolling, screws up your cycle, screws up your ability to recover well. You get more irritable, you feel a little bit more disgruntled, dysregulated. You're a little bit more moody. You're much more likely to succumb to eating some kind of junk food or succumb to some kind of impulse because you're not feeling yourself, not feeling as good as you could be feeling. And then it just starts to turn to this like snowball of a cycle of like, I didn't sleep well. I'm feeling like crap. I can't say no to junk food anymore. I eat the junk food. I feel like crap even more. My hormones are getting a little bit messed up because the quality of the food is going down. I'm not exercising that much because I'm so fatigued from eating junk food and not sleeping well. And then it just turns into this crap cycle. And then you feel so bad about yourself. You're saying, I need to just something to calm me down. Oh, there's weed, there's porn, there's video games, there's Netflix, there's things like that. And then it just continues to compound and exaggerate this cycle. So it's kind of fucking with your own psychology. It's psychology, your biology, your mental state, your physical state, your emotional state, everything. So I think a lot of it has been we're kind of sabotaging the productivity, the healthy productivity of men in the modern age by giving them so many opportunities to fall into easy addictions and traps.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I see that. I mean, I think about it like, at night, like the phone is a great example of that, like
Yeah.
having the phone nearby. Now, I'll admit I have a particular habit I do each day where at the start of the day I record a voice note, and as I'm falling asleep, I will listen to that voice note. But I've
Mhm.
deliberately turned off my notifications and turned off the sound otherwise because I
Yeah.
don't want to be distracted by the phone. And otherwise it just becomes this loop. So one of the things that I notice a lot in the work that I do with men, and I'm sure you do too, is that there is this tendency to get addicted. So let's kind of talk a little bit about addiction itself and how that
Sure.
shows up. So my you and I both went through a course called or with Connor Beaton, where we were talking about we got to talk with a couple of the OGs of this work, and one of the topics was addiction. And relationally, we know that addiction is kind of a replacement is like basically replacing relationship with substance because that substance is trying to heal something. But on the physiological level, what's happening when somebody gets addicted to porn or video games or something else?
Depends on what the actual substance is. Porn and video games is kind of my thing. I never really had an issue with alcohol or drugs or things like that. Physiologically, like no big surprise from like me even back in the day. I'm 36, but I still have a pretty sufficiently high libido, as most men tend to. But it is what it does is that porn and video games, what they do is they give the parts of your brain a false sense of accomplishment in achieving tasks that really are not as productive as they could be, but they're just sufficient enough in getting that itch scratched that you think you're accomplishing something. So porn, for example, men are very visually sexual creatures. Like we just there's a reason. There's a reason I think if you ask most men, it's like, what do you find really attractive in a woman? It'd be like, nice boobs, nice butt, this and that, soft skin, long hair, certain facial features. And like if you just there's even studies they've shown where like they would show like pictures to men. So like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think? And they would have a physiological arousal response at certain characteristics of female curvature, female aesthetics, female beauty, and whatnot. You show the same thing to women, you get all kinds of different results. It's not really consistent across the board. Women attraction is more based on a lot of more I'd say subconscious, but different metrics of attractiveness. But for men, porn is stupidly easy to get a near infinite access to this is good. We'll try and get a couple different topics from here. Stupidly easy to get near infinite access to, and it scratches a couple itches. So for example, number one is that we have a natural, all humans have a natural proclivity towards variety and novelty, toward novelty seeking creatures. We get bored easily. And part of that is just because our environments that we involved in were so volatile and variable that it was actually very good to kind of be ready for new shit to happen. And then on some level, when new shit doesn't happen, you almost get confused, and then it gets predictable and it's boring, and you're looking for an advantage somewhere else. So you're going to start looking for new things. And the other part of that is that so you ever heard of something called the Coolidge effect?
No, tell us about
This is
that.
a funny one. It's nicknamed after Calvin Coolidge, who was a U.S. president. And there's a story that goes, well, I don't know if this story is true, but it's very funny to me at least. And so what happened was him and his wife were on a tour, like a presidential tour back in, whatever year he was around. And they were checking out a farm. And the wife was being guided around by like this person who ran the farm, like, oh, these are the chickens, these are the horses, this is that, whatever. And at some point, the wife walks past the roosters and the hens, and she sees the rooster copulating with one of the hens, and she sees the rooster like having sex, whatever. And she goes to the farmer and she's like, "This is like the rooster. What's going on there?" Like, oh, the rooster is copulating with a hen. And she goes, "Oh, does the rooster do that every single day?" And he's like, "Every single day." And she's like, "When you tell me when my the president comes through, can you tell him that?" Kind of like, why does my husband do that to me? And so later on, the president comes through and he sees what's going on. And the farm keeper is like, "Your wife wanted me to tell you about the roosters." Well, what about the roosters? Like that he copulates with the hen, like the hen every single day. And the president was like, "Is it with the same hen every time?" He's like, "No, it's a different hen every time." Like, tell her that. And so the whole idea is that there is actually a proven site, like we've done this with studies in a lot of different mammals, sexually dimorphic creatures, male, female, across the different species that the males have something referred to as the Coolidge effect, where if you were to take like a male lab rat, like a healthy reproductive age male lab rat, put it in with like a female anestrus who's like ready to reproduce, and he'll just have sex with her immediately and do his thing and finish his stuff, whatever. Take the female out, put a brand new female in, and he'll get aroused immediately and go right to having sex with her. Take that female out, put another rab, again, he'll just get aroused. If it's a new one over and over, he'll just do it till he just crashes, till he just passes the fuck out. He can't do it anymore. But if you leave the same female from the very beginning in the whole time, he'll have sex with her, but the time in between arousal gets longer and longer and longer. And so the problem with something like porn is that it kind of simulates this effect because it's like you're going into a new partner every time. So it's a near infinite variety. It's never the same person, never the same position. You can find exactly what you're looking for in any different combination of weird, kinky stuff you might be into, and it's at your fingertips 24/7. So you could just have that infinite variety all the time. Not to mention, a lot of it is that sex in itself for men is partly bonding, but a big part of it is also just like nervous system regulation and sedation and then like just calming you down. So a lot of times men will use sex as a way of being like, I just need to like chill, I need to calm down, I want to be in connection with you. And porn is a good way of just kind of simulating that interaction. In case you can't get a girlfriend, in case you don't have a partner or wife who are essentially sexually interested, porn acts as that attachment that you think you can attach to. So like that infinite variety from the Coolidge effect, plus you're stressed out, you don't know how to manage it. And especially if you find it at a very young age, I think something like the average age of young boys finding porn nowadays is like 10, 11 years old and getting younger. I think I found that when I was 12, 13 years old, pay-per-view box in my dad's basement. Because the passcodes, everything in the house was the exact same code. And I was like, oh, let's just try it out. Oh shit, look at that. Whoa, what are these channels?
Do 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 do.
Yeah, yeah. And then just like, hanging out in my basement and playing video games, I swear. Yeah, no, I wasn't. But
You're playing
that
video games, just a different type of video
There's a
game.
different type of game. And I got the controller stick in my hand right here. Um, but yeah, but it can really shape a lot of men's. It's a bit of a doom loop too. It shapes a lot. A lot of men get very attached to it. That kind of like it's hard to get that infinite variety at your fingertips, 24/7. It's always there to help you calm down whenever you're stressed. So you may not learn healthy stress management. And then if you also get a certain sense of impression of what sex is supposed to look like from porn and then bring it to real life, most real life sex is not even anywhere close to that. And it starts to cause inducing shame, inducing, a sense of guilt, a sense of like a performative action, like I'm supposed to do it like they're doing in porn. And then they meet women, and
Yeah.
the women are like, I don't want you to put me into like a fucking headstand and like jump on top. Like, what are you doing right now? What the fuck? And they're like, but that's what I'm supposed to do. And then like and then not only that, you can also create this kind of like false realities where these guys can last for an hour at a time because the video never stops. When in reality, it's like 7 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes tops, but not including foreplay. It's what most of the time it's probably going to go for. And then they get a sense of shame, they get a sense of embarrassment. They have, like dick size insecurity because they see these like giant like eggplants on porn running around, which is a very small population percent of the population. And even beyond that, most women another thing, there's studies conducted as far as like, satisfaction with penis size for men. And it's like 90% plus of women globally are like, I'm fine with it. Trust me, you don't have to be a friggin' elephant to make me happy. And if you are an elephant, it actually legitimately hurts in ways and it makes it really unpleasurable. And then, yeah, like you get that whole situation where guys, they get a false impression of sex at a young age. They learn to use the porn as a way of calming themselves down so they can't handle stress in other ways. They can't learn how to self-regulate in healthy ways. And then when they try to get into relationships and they can't hold on to relationships because they haven't learned how to self-regulation, they haven't learned how to like interact with a woman in a healthy way, it just reinforces why do I have to deal with all this stress over here? I figure out how to talk to a woman when I can just go back to porn over and over again. And she's the same person, but there's always a different person here over here. You don't get the same depth of like intimacy and connection and like vulnerability with a real person as you do for a long-term relationship. But again, some people it's hard for some guys to kind of break that loop. And there's also, just without going on too much more of a rant here, there's a problem where the pathways in the brain that move you in the direction of a thing are not the same pathways that give you the satisfaction for achieving the thing itself.
Yeah.
So like dopamine moves you in the direction. It feels good when you're moving towards it, but then there's referred to as like endocannabinoids. It's like there's like the pleasure, hedonic pleasure. They're literally called like the hedonic pathways versus the dopaminergic pathways. Dopamine is like keep moving in that direction. I'm going to reward you for moving in that direction, not accomplishing the thing, but moving in that direction. And then like the pleasure burst, the orgasm at the end is the endocannabinoids. The problem is endocannabinoids and like the pleasure part, the result at the end, that can fatigue. But the dopamine pathways can just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is why you have these guys going, I can't stop myself from going to do it, but it doesn't feel as good anymore. And I have to keep elevating and elevating and elevating it just to get the same high. It's just chasing the dragon in a nutshell.
Well, and
So
it
it's
seems like it's one of those cases where what they're really missing also is just that relational connection. I mean,
that's
there's
another angle to it. Yeah.
right. I mean, that's certainly something that I've observed. I would say that I got into porn when I was a teenager. I didn't have to get a password. I just found a videotape, you
Mhm.
know. So I was a little bit older, a bit older than you, so that was my
Dude, I had
introduction.
Napster, I had LimeWire, I was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
all those web AOL dial-up. I was on that shit.
Yeah. So but, I would watch it occasionally. I would read some magazines. And then, later on in life, of course, I mean, I think, occasionally I'd go and look on Pornhub because that was where, that's where you could find the stuff. But
hmm
what I noticed is that, and this is, I think, what really kind of helped me have the moment of like, this stuff isn't really good for me and not really helpful is like, I didn't really feel a sense of satisfaction. I felt
Yeah.
dissatisfaction. I felt like kind of like afterwards, like I'm like, oh, like I feel like I've wasted something here.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas when I compared that to, having sex with somebody, it felt like, well, I'm actually having there's something different. There's this physiological connection. The oxytocin is coming into play, these
Yes.
other things. So
Yes.
it seems like in one sense, like, the way that porn is oriented, it's really oriented toward a very short lasting pleasure that doesn't really connect men to the longer pleasure, the deeper pleasure of a relational approach, which sex is part of. It's not the only thing, but it's a pretty significant thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a tough one because especially if you have guys who women have much, I think it's like three times a larger number of oxytocin receptors in their brain than men do. So if you get a man who like already naturally has lower receptors, but men actually have higher vasopressin receptors, vasopressin, whatever the pronunciation is. That's generally vasopressin is when like guys accomplish a thing. It's a difficult
Hmm.
task with somebody they enjoy working with. And it feels really fucking good. Call of Duty, killing a squad with your buddies, or building a house, or going on like a trip somewhere and accomplishing something, whatever it may be. Guys love to do shit with other people they like spending time with to accomplish a task together. Women generally do more like social bonding and social glue with each other. And it's usually it works well because then you have like people who are building shit, women who people who are like making sure people are socially keeping together in some capacity. If you get these guys who, I like, for example, for the vasopressin, you'll see this very commonly with guys who, and this may resonate with anyone who's watching this as a guy. It's like you're more concerned with her having an orgasm than you are with how she's actually feeling and if she's like really enjoying it. I was me. I was like afterwards, I'd be like, well, so was it like three orgasms, four? How many did you have this time? Was it enough? Are you good? And she'd be like, what the fuck? I was just happy you're here with me right now. Like, I'm just like, I felt that just being in the experience felt good with you. It's fine. I'm like, maybe I had a couple, I don't know, but it was just like, it was nice. But I was so fixated on like the number, was my dick big enough, this and that. And I was obsessed with all this shit growing up and not realizing like, oh, there's a different level of just like understanding that her experience is not gonna be the same thing as yours, especially assuming you're like heterosexual couple. But the oxytocin thing, yeah, there is a layer of if you get men who I wish there was a better way to say like quite literally did not get enough hugs growing up, did not get enough physical contact, eye contact, reassurance, and like just like love bonding with their parents. The number of receptor sites may have actually diminished as a result because you just didn't get the hormones weren't being produced because the activity wasn't happening, so the receptor sites didn't actually have to form in the brain so that later on, when they do have sex with somebody they're actually building a connection with, and the person goes, "I love you," and they go, "Oh, what the fuck? No, that's not. No, I'm not supposed to feel that. Something feels wrong about that. I don't know what that is. No, I'm good." Or they just go like, "Ah, it's cool," and then just walk away because like they got a hit of oxytocin, but it has nowhere to go, so it just feels weird. Luckily enough, the brain is adaptive. Hey, adaptive Ben, that it can actually change the number of receptor sites in response to the types of hormones that are being produced. So, for example, if you're doing activities that are just like dopamine heavy, your brain will start to produce more receptor sites for dopamine, which kind of then creates a craving for more because it's expecting more because there's more receptor sites on there. Which is why when you try to take off of it, it actually can be uncomfortable and painful to move through that process of detoxing off an activity. Same thing can go on with like romance and oxytocin bonding and love. It's like you'll have guys that have a hard time making eye contact with their partners or have a hard time like just cuddling afterwards or saying I love you and being okay and being in contact with somebody. And that discomfort is what you're sitting with. It's like that is your detox process. It's like just sit there and look her in the eyes and just like smile and just like that feeling of like I want to look away. Like no, just sit with it. Try to sit there as long as you can. Give her a hug and just like give her like a 30-second hug and just like hold like sit there, hold each other and just like take a deep breath and relax into it. Even if you feel that kind of resistance coming up, relax into the resistance and it'll still over time physical contact, eye contact, sex, cuddling, just like that kind of soft playfulness. Like the more you start to do oxytocin producing activities, the more oxytocin you're going to produce, the more your brain's going to start to adapt to start taking it up, and then you'll start expecting it and looking for it more, which then improves your relationships overall.
Yeah, I can attest to that actually because that was me. I for a long I didn't like to cuddle. I felt very uncomfortable with that.
Hmm.
And then I in my second marriage, I started to just kind of like my wife, my ex-wife now, but she really wanted to cuddle a lot. And so I kind of forced myself to cuddle with her. And at a certain point, like a switch flipped and I started actually wanting it more. And I'm
Yep.
like, whoa, this is
Yep.
weird, but it was amazing. So that in and of itself right there sounds like a really good practice to kind of counteract some of this stuff. But what do we do for a guy who is like addicted to porn? Like what are some of the steps that you walk him through or take him through in terms of helping him start to unhook that unhook from that addiction and start to develop more relationally?
Well, step one is to figure out where this all came from.
Hmm.
Because understanding its origin point can be very potent for getting guys to take the meaningful first steps and understand, like, it puts an answer as to the why. Like, why can't I quit this? Why does it keep happening? Why this? Why that? Why can't I maintain a relationship? And very often, like what we talked about with the course we both took, the How to Work with Men, it's something rooted back in your attachment, something going on in your childhood that, why do you keep, freaking out when your girlfriend says she loves you? Because something happened with the way your mom said it, and it's like it's repeating itself. It's very familiar to you. Figure out where it's coming from. And another angle is, what is your ritual? What does it look like? Like for me, for example, if I ever have like had an urge to watch porn, it's usually when I got home. Like I never had it like when I was out and about in a public place, or even at work or things like that. But when I was home, and especially when I was bored, that's when all of a
Hmm.
sudden I was just like, I just feel, and really what it is my body saying, I need a hit of dopamine because I'm bored. So I'm going to convince you to do things that, based on your past experience, were things that gave me dopamine. So if it's like whatever you did to start give you those hits of dopamine was what your brain's going to start telling you to go back to doing again and again. And then where's the environment? What's it look like? Oh, I get home, I put my stuff down, I change into my pajamas, I put on a cup of coffee or like a cup of tea, whatever it is. Then I take my phone out, I go to the bathroom, and then I turn the lights off. Every single time it's the same thing. Or I'm in the bed, lying down, I'm bored. I'm trying to get to sleep, but I'm looking at my phone. It's a box of tissues next to me, and then, fucking look what happens. Or like every time I get into a fight with my girlfriend, it's like shortly afterwards I notice like, man, I wonder I'm just gonna go pull out my phone real quick and just do a thing. Stress from work, stress from home, boredom, like figure out like what is it that's triggering it, and then like what does your ritual look like, and can we start putting like stoppers and blocks in place along the path of that ritual. So like, can you make a note to yourself, like when you get home, instead of going like through your usual routine and putting your just get home and like to 10 minutes, 15 minutes of meditation. Maybe go for a walk instead. When the urge hits you, just notice it and then try to replace it with
Hmm.
something else. It could be do some yoga, go for a walk, just do 25 push-ups or burpees, whatever it is. Like burn off some of that energy. You'll get a bit of a dopamine hit just from doing it. Like burpees and work push-ups and working out may not be super pleasant, but you'll feel good afterwards. And that feel good feeling over enough iterations will start to then replace that urge. So when you're like, I'm bored. Oh, no, I feel like working out for some reason. That's weird. Before it was porn, now it's exercise, or now it's journaling, or now it's going for a walk, or maybe it's I just want to be in connection with my partner. So instead, it's just like, hey, do you want to go cuddle? Do you want to go like sit down and like watch a movie? You want to just go for a walk and hold hands instead? And you can even tell, it's like, yeah, I'm just trying to like replace this urge with something else associated with you. I want to connect with you, not with that thing over there. And understanding that no matter how hard, like, depending on how bad the addiction is, you're going to relapse. That's not unusual. But the goal is to figure out where that threshold is of like where you can tolerate the discomfort, but not so bad that it's going to like throw you off track completely. If it's like, I have to watch porn twice a day just to function, cool. Let's get it down to like once a day, every other day, along with like it's every single day, twice a day, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, once a day, but then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, twice a day. Cool. Can you get that far? That cool. Now let's take off the once a day, 5 days a week. Cool. Let's take off like once a day, every other day, and just start gradually chipping away at it, depending on how bad it is. Some people could just go cold turkey and it's fine, but it could be that you need to take it off slowly, whatever it may be. Put some more blocks on your phone, things like that. Maybe have a person you can call, like a friend or something like that. Like, look, Brian, I'm feeling an urge right now. I just wanted to talk to somebody just to distract myself a little bit. Okay, cool. Like, just try to like redirect it in some productive way. And then also replacing it with certain things. Like it's energy that's looking for an outlet, something productive. Again, like exercise, journaling. Maybe you like to do some kind of hobby. You like to paint miniature figurines or paint or something like that. Just go do that instead. Just start retraining yourself to say, when I'm bored, I'm going to do this instead of that.
Yeah, I know one of the challenges that I've observed is that also is even just talking about it. Most men don't
Yeah.
want to talk about this. But I think then, it gets to a point where it's kind of like it hits a crisis point. And it's
Hmm.
interesting because what I've observed is that often as not, the porn that they get into represents their own sexual wounding or
Mm.
their own wounding in regards to like something that happened in their life. So it's not even just about like the porn itself. It's also possibly like, oh, okay, here's this thing that gives me a chance to explore my fetish around this or that I have some wounding around.
Yeah, yeah, I can speak personally to that. Like I had a lot of size insecurity growing up, and like I never heard it. I'm not even bragging. Like I never heard a girlfriend go, past girlfriend be like, "Oh, you weren't big enough." It's just like most, what I tell most guys who have like any kind of like penis envy and things like that, size envy. It's like, listen, if a baby can fit through there, and she still wants to have sex with you, like size is not a problem, bro. Trust me. Uh, most all my relationships, none of them ended because like, yeah, you were just terrible in bed. I couldn't do it anymore. Every one of them was because like you're too nice, you're a people pleaser, or my trauma is bigger than I can handle right now, whatever it may be. But I could
Hmm.
definitely like there was like types of porn that I was watching that was like, oh, I want to find the guys with the gigadongs and just like just to check out that stuff. Because back when I was younger, that was a real insecurity of mine. And then it's like it took a while to like really think through, like, well, like there were plenty of times women were just like, yeah, that was a great sexual experience. And like, yeah, because and like that, because like you were present, you made eye contact, you noticed my body rhythm, you were like, like you responded when I liked certain things and backed off when I didn't like certain things. I may have to say anything. Like very often, that is like the best sexual experience is all just the connection, the experience around it itself, not the size of the junk. But I could see that with a lot of guys who may be looking into these things out of just a curiosity, where it's like very commonly I've heard this with guys, you do the submissive thing where like you have guys who are like ultra high-end CEO, executive, Wall Street banker dude, and they just love like going to like a dominatrix and getting like spanked or something like pinned down where it's like, I just want you to be in charge. So they're gonna look for like porn that kind of like has guys in submissive position or whatever, because it's like a reflection of the other side they're looking to explore or just get into because they're just tired of being whatever they or they're tired of a feeling they've had or they're trying to express a feeling that they've had in some capacity.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. Like there's just something to be said for being able to let go of that control sometimes. And when it's done in a healthy way, that's great. But when it's done like where it's like, oh, I'm gonna go look at this through porn, but I'm not actually speaking up for what I want and need, I think that's where it sabotages relationships and creates all
Hmm.
kind of haywire.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot of there's can be shame around it because they're just perceiving it as like it's not gonna be well received by their partner.
Mhm.
It's just whatever it may be. It's a really funny. It's what's popping in my head. Tom Segura is a comedian. He was talking about this with his wife and how like how with like marriage, it's almost like a contract where the person can't run away no matter how freaky you might be. And he was talking about how like, it's like, yeah, when I was dating my wife, it was like, oh, I like it if, you like, you t take your shirt off and, just use your hands, just simple stuff. And he's like, as soon as I got married, she's like, I told her like, I want you to yank my ball bag like you're pulling a fire alarm on like a five-alarm fire and just all this crazy shit. But the idea then again is like, do you have things you're into that maybe you're convinced the rest of the world wouldn't be appropriate, wouldn't think it was appropriate, but it's like it's between you and your partner. Who the fuck cares? But having the courage and having the emotional grounding to say it out loud and just see how it's received by your partner and see, and odds are she's probably got some interesting things she wants to try too, and she's never told you. And to be able to get that level of vulnerability with the person doing whatever the hell it is you want to do in the privacy of your own bedroom, go for it. It's awesome. It's one of the best places to just be seen and witnessed for just whatever it is you're feeling or wanting to do. But yeah, that shame, if you push it down hard enough, it's just going to bubble right back up again. It's just like you're going to find it. It's going to express itself in other places. And most commonly, you're going to see guys going to porn to try to find an outlet for it.
Mhm. Okay. Where can people find you on the web if they want to learn more about you and how to work with you?
Sure. I'm over at adaptivemen.com. I have coaching links on there. I have it's a website, YouTube channel. I do a podcast on a regular basis. I fell off it every couple of weeks now, but I'm going to get back onto it soon. At Adaptive Men. I have an Instagram. I think I don't even have it's the adaptive at the adaptive men. I haven't been using it as much as I should be. But yeah, YouTube and website probably be the best two ways you can contact with me.
Okay, great. And what I always like to do with these interviews is end with one last question, which is like, what's a word or a phrase of wisdom that people can take with them into the day moving forward to help them in a good way?
A word, it's a
Or a
smart
phrase.
or a phrase. Hmm. I think a simple one might be you are not your programming.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much their behaviors, their mannerisms. Part of it is personality, granted. But a lot of it is stuff that was essentially wired into you from a young age to survive the environment that you had to grow up in.
Hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily define you. And like odds are like your authentic self, who you really are, is probably hiding somewhere underneath that. And so if that was programmed into you in some capacity, that's not necessarily doesn't necessarily have to be who you are. And if you feel a disconnect between the two, where it's like I act this way, but I don't like it. I feel this way, but I don't really like it. I just feel it's something to start exploring, start asking yourself, like, well, who are you really? And it would be okay if you actually were to start trying on a new identity and trying on new things and just seeing who you really are and being okay with moving in that direction.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
you
good.
making time today, and I'm glad that you were on here. And for those of you out there, who may be struggling with some addiction, I definitely would recommend reaching out because you don't have to go through this alone. Having somebody who understands what you're going through can be a huge power up right there to get you
Mm,
through.
absolutely. Thank you, Taylor. Appreciate this.